All right, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. A lot to talk about, man. The Philadelphia Eagles draft is now over. It is in the books. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm a little bit sad. I'm a little bit sad because now we got to sit here and wait a whole another 4 months. But we're not going to be negative Nancy's today. We're going to be positive Paulie, I don't know. We're going to be positive today. That's what we're going to do. And what we're going to do today is go through every single draft pick that the Philadelphia Eagles had. I'm going to give you my thoughts on them individually, give you some numbers, throw some, things out that, luckily I was able to see a lot of these guys at the Senior Bowl and obviously been watching a lot of their films. So I'm going to give you my opinion. Before we get into all that, be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe, join the family, man. We got a lot of content coming out your way. So would love for you guys to join that family. But let's get into it. Let's get into it. Shout out to my guy, Big Game James. The first pick comes from Best of Enemies. So the first night we were watching, amazing night for the Philadelphia Eagles. We all went in there, me included, went in there thinking we were going to trade up, maybe trade down, maybe trade all around. There was points I thought we might get into the WNBA draft. There was just so many rumors about what the Eagles were going to do. We stuck and we pucked. It's sticked and picked, right? We stuck at 22 and we picked the guy that I think everybody in Philadelphia realistically wanted, but didn't realistically think they could get. So QUINYON Mitchell, welcome to Philadelphia. He is a cool, calm cat, 6 foot even, 195 pounds, out of Toledo. He's from Williston, Florida, which is pretty cool because, I don't think that's too far from me. But he is a junior. He ran a 4.33. Not once, but twice. He ran twice. I think he did it at his pro day, and then at the combine. He was at the Senior Bowl. Kid was an absolute animal. I mean, there's not much to say about him that hasn't already been said. The 10-yard dash, he was at 1.51. The arm length is at 31 inches. I told you the 40, the vertical, 38 inches, benched 20 times. His broad jump was 122. I mean, this kid is an athlete, high level athlete, and we're lucky to have him. I'm gonna be honest with you. When I first started watching QUINYON Mitchell, I was like, why is nobody talking about him? Like, this is all prior to the Senior Bowl. I was like, why is nobody talking about him? And he was one of the guys that I even said to James, I was like, listen, man, I'm ready to see what this kid can do against better talent. Obviously, Toledo doesn't have, it's not a, powerhouse competition. They did play some good teams. He, got cooked every now and then, but I feel like every single year he's gotten better, and I feel like he was the best cornerback in this class. Some people can talk about Terry and Arnold. Some people could talk about Nate Wiggins. Some people could talk about Kool-Aid. I think that QUINYON was the best all-around prospect, and at the end of the day, he fits what the Philadelphia Eagles want to do. If you, know anything about the Philadelphia Eagles' new defense, everybody talks about it on Twitter to end, so I'm sure you know already, but the Eagles like to run a lot of zone. We are not a man team. And realistically, there's not a lot of man press coverage teams in this league anymore. There's a handful that do it at a considerable rate, like the Patriots. They like to do it a lot. But at the end of the day, I feel like he fits what we want to do. He doesn't necessarily have to start this year. I mean, I don't see how he won't. I'm going to be 100% honest. I mean, you're fighting against maybe Cooper DeJean, but you're fighting against James Bradbury, Eli Ricks, Kaylee Ringo. None of these guys were highly touted. Obviously, you paid a good money to James Bradbury, but we saw what happened last year. So there's a very, very good chance that QUINYON Mitchell is your starting cornerback day one. He's an outside guy, but he can move inside. He has the speed. He has decent enough size, and he has the athleticism. There are some things to be a little bit worried about. Even though he is very, very fast, he does kind of lag a little bit when it comes to transition. Like one thing that the Eagles saw a lot of last year is playing off ball, right? So if we're playing 10 yards deep, one thing that will kind of concern me, but it does concern me about everybody. One thing that concerns me about QUINYON Mitchell is unless he knows what the route is, he might be a step late on those breaking routes, on those comeback routes, on those curls. He might be a step late. So that's something to, realistically look at. But everything else, I love the kid. I was high on him prior to this draft. Again, I didn't think that we would even get it. I don't know how does it. I don't know how he does it, but he does. And Shout out to him. So that was the first one, Quinyon Mitchell. Not much. I mean, like I said, everybody knows who Quinyon Mitchell is at this point. I'm surprised if I can tell you anything new about this kid. So I'm excited about him. The second one, I felt like we had 2 first-round picks. I'm going to be honest with you. I felt like we had 2 first-round picks. Cooper DeJean, I mean, another guy. What is there to say about this kid? There's so much good about this kid. Another outside corner, another zone cornerback, which again, we're kind of going with the same philosophy. This is what we want to do. These are the type of guys you need if you want to do that. Now, the 40 wasn't overly impressive. He ran a 4.5, benched 16 times. Arm length is at 31 1/8. His weight is good, 203 pounds at 6 foot even. I mean, there's a lot of talk about him possibly moving to safety, which I personally think makes a lot of sense. I think that if Cooper DeJean is to be safe, and it doesn't even have to, we're just putting a letter next to his name, to be 100% honest with you, because he's a weapon. He is a guy that can move all around the field. He can, hit your slot. He can man the outside. He can be a safety. He can be over top. He can come down into the box and help in the run game. He can do just about anything you really ask him to do. He was very, very good in Iowa. I mean, that's, it is what it is. There's no doubt about that. He is just a very, very rare type of cornerback. He has a very good frame. Again, 6 foot, 203 pounds, still able to move with that frame with the 4.5. And I think he looked a lot faster on tape, or when you watched him in games, he looked a lot faster than that 4.5. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. There's some things that you do worry about with him as well. I mean, again, a lot of positives, but some of the negatives that you want to look at with Cooper DeJean is, again, kind of that read and react ability. He's not the fastest. Again, he's not the quickest of cornerbacks. So if you beat him on a break, he does have to recover. That's something that you got to kind of be wary of. He doesn't have the craziest recovery speed. So you're relying, this is why he probably fits best at safety. You're relying on him to be able to see what's in front of him and react to that. So if you put him as a cornerback, if he gets beat on a double route or something like that, he's not a guy that's going to, chase a guy down, especially with some of these wide receivers that we're going to be facing. You got to look at the just in the NFC East alone, right? You look at the speedsters that the Washington has. They got Jahan Dotson. You miss Jahan Dotson on a break, you're losing Jahan Dotson. So I think that this is a guy that you're not going to really expect to press a bunch of people. He can do it, but he's not a guy that you're going to ask him to do that a bunch. He doesn't have the hip fluidity to really stay with a lot of these fast wide receivers. So I think safety makes a lot of sense, but there's a lot to like about this guy. Again, just the size, the technique, the athleticism. He has it all. But just like with any other prospect, I mean, these guys are young. You're gonna learn as you go. I believe he's just 21, if I'm not mistaken. So this was a home run pick. Having to move up, you gave up your other second round pick, but you got a third round pick back. I think a lot of Eagles fans, me included, wanted to get into that third round anyways. So you get possibly the best player in the second round, and you get a third round pick. I mean, I'm cool with that. I'm okay with that. So shout out to Cooper DeJean. It's funny. I don't know if you guys saw the little clips the little AMAs that they're doing with these guys, but him and Quinyon did one, and everybody was asking him to change his last name legally to Cooper DeJean, to DeJawn, however you're supposed to pronounce that, DeJawn. I think you guys know what I'm trying to say. He said he might do it, so I would love to see that happen. Cooper DeJean might be... Look, Quinyon Mitchell was my favorite pick in the sense of I had no faith that we'd be able to get him at 22. Cooper DeJean is probably my favorite pick as far as I think a lot of people were hating on this kid. I think a lot of people didn't realize what he could realistically do for this defense or in an NFL defense in general. So I'm excited for him to be on our team. And it brings up the possibility that he's our punt returner, kick returner, if Britton Covey is on the outs. I mean, I love Britton Covey, but that's all he does is he punt returns. So if you got a guy that can kind of give you multiple facets of the game, options is a beautiful thing, brother. Options is a beautiful thing. Now, next, I want to get on to JALYX Hunt. I always call him Jalen Hunt. I don't know why. We have too many Jalens as it is. He's JALYX, okay? This kid is upside. Now, when you hear upside when you get into the third round, maybe that frustrates you. And I Totally get that. If that frustrates you, I totally get it. But he has a pretty high ceiling as well. So I mean, a high floor as well. Excuse me. 6'4", 252 pounds. Obviously came out of Houston Christian. So not the biggest of schools, right? Not the biggest of schools. 4'6", 40 time, which is kind of unreal for a 6'4", 252 defensive end. He was a former safety. A lot of people like to bring this up. He was a former safety, so he has that in him. He can definitely drop back, and he can definitely, play coverage if necessary, or if that's what you want to do every now and then. I'm not saying he's a linebacker. I'm not saying he's a coverage linebacker. Not to that extent, but he is a very, very good player. Now, when we saw him last year, again, another guy that improved, I feel like, every single year. He is a senior, and he was at the Senior Bowl, so I got to see him at the Senior Bowl, which I liked. A little bit light, right? But you know who he really reminds me of? And his hands were 10 inches, vertical 37 and a half. He benched 19 times. So think about that. QUINYON Mitchell benched more than our edge rusher, only by one, but it's just kind of crazy to think. But anyways, this kid is just, like I said, a bunch of athleticism, a bunch of upside. When he was at the Senior Bowl, he looked really, really good. I know that the Eagles really like this kid, and I know that Vic Fangio, this comes out after he was picked, he said this was his favorite player. So again, I understand being a little bit upset or a little frustrated by getting somebody that's more of a projection in this round, but my projection is a Hassan Reddick that can actually cover. I said this before, and I'll say this again. I'm not saying he's gonna be Hassan Reddick or he's gonna have multiple seasons of 12 plus sacks. Not saying that, not putting that on him, especially year one, but I do think that that's what his frame and his play style kind of simulates to. So I think that he can be, like I said, in Hassan Reddick, that you do not feel any type of way by telling him drop back in coverage. And it's, again, not a every down thing. It's not but the Eagles like to drop their edge rushers in coverage. I think he's a perfect guy for this team. I mean, the only negatives I really have on him is he just needs to get there. He just doesn't have the discipline. He doesn't have consistent pass rush moves yet. He does need to get stronger. I mean, that's always going to be something. So it kind of worries you in the run game. Will he be able to kind of hold his ground? Technique. He plays a little bit upright. So there's stuff that you want to see him improve upon, and he's far from a done prospect, finished prospect, but just the size, the speed, the athleticism, the tape, it really, really makes you feel like JALYX could be that guy for the Eagles down the road, maybe a star pass rusher. It's going to take a little while. It might take a year, it might take two, it might take a week, who knows? But at the end of the day, I do think that it's going to take a little bit, and I think we are best to practice patience with a guy like this, because he is a guy, and we've all kind of dealt with this with Brandon Graham, right? He's a guy that's it's gonna take him a little bit of time to understand the NFL, and I don't want to push him out just because he has a bad first year or a bad second year, you know what I'm saying? So we'll keep an eye on him, but I do like this pick a lot. Again, just high upside. I've taken him in a couple of my drafts for the Eagles. I think right before the draft, I took him at 120. So for them to take him at 94 is kind of, maybe Joe was on to something. Maybe Joe knows something. And I just picked up the wrong one. But we are going to go on to Will Shipley next. Will Shipley, look, I will say this. When you get into the draft process, you start falling for people. You start thinking that, hey, this guy is the guy. This running back is the one I need. I love Jalen Wright. I love Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson. I loved Marshawn Lloyd. These all were guys that, were really, really good. But you go ahead and get Will Shipley. Will Shipley, 5'11". He's 21 years old, 206 pounds. He's got 9 5/8 of a inch. I can't talk. Hands. 4.3940, not a burner. I mean, look, I'm not mad at it. I think that he reminds me a lot of like a Christian McCaffrey in the sense that he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can run the ball out of the backfield, obviously, and he can block a little bit. There's, I feel like he doesn't have that extended speed, but I've seen him run fast, if that makes any sense. Like, when you watch the tape, he looks faster than that 4, whatever it was, I think 3.9 or 5.9, whatever it was. He looks faster than that number. So, some people just get faster on the field. Some people are just faster in actual games than they are, putting their hand in the dirt and trying to run, to a gun sound. So, I think that this kid does have speed. I think that he has a very, very open eye when it comes to running the ball, catching the ball. He's a good pass protector, like I said. Somebody that I definitely think you don't feel nervous about having in on pass plays, on third down situations. So I'm cool with that. Again, a skilled wide receiver. He knows how to really run routes from anywhere. I've seen him in the slot. I've seen him out wide. I've seen him, running from the backfield. So I like him a lot. He did have a history of fumbles. He did, definitely have some fumbles. So don't want to see that happen. He didn't lose them all, but he definitely don't want to see that happen. And the Eagles have dealt with a lot of running backs that don't know how to hold on to the ball. So hopefully hopefully he can fix that. I think the Eagles will be able to kind of figure that out. That's really, there's not much negative about him. You can really nitpick and say, like, when he's in the backfield, maybe he's a little bit too patient, like maybe almost a hesitation. That's really, I don't have too much bad for Will Shipley. I actually really like this pick, and I think that it makes sense for the Eagles pairing him with a Saquon Barkley because they do a lot of similar things as well. Saquon Barkley is just a athletic freak, so it's kind of hard to really compare anybody to him. But I like Will Shipley. I think that it makes a lot of sense for this Philadelphia Eagles team. You guys let me know. This is where I ask for y'all help because Will Shipley, again, he might not have been your favorite guy. We still ended up getting Kendall Milton, and I like Kendall Milton a lot as well. So it's like, where do you see Will Shipley really fitting in? I think that he can supplant Kenny Gainwell pretty quickly. Kenny Gainwell was really only on the field because he knew how to block a little bit. So maybe that's where he fits in. You guys let me know down below. What are you guys thinking about him? Where is his best fit? But Will Shipley, welcome to Philadelphia. 127 fourth round pick. I ain't mad at it. I ain't even mad at it. Now, one thing that I am not mad at, I'm actually very, very happy about. I told y'all about AINIAS Smith. How many times? How many times did I tell y'all about AINIAS Smith? Yeah, y'all gonna start listening to Joe. I'm telling y'all, one of these days, y'all gonna listen to Joe. Another guy that I got to see at the Senior Bowl was a lot of fun to watch. Didn't run the fastest. I feel like he's the prime example of why not everybody should go to the combine. And that is not no knock on him or anything like that. But when you watch his tape, and not crazy production or anything like that either, but when you watch his tape, he's all over the field. He is a slot receiver. But people were asking him at the Senior Bowl, at the combine. They kept asking him if he could play outside, and he feels like he can. He feels like that's what a lot of NFL teams are asking of him. But 5'9", 190 pounds. I don't know how many times you're going to be playing outside at 5'9", but he thinks he can do it, so I think he can do it too. But we probably won't be asking him to do that. 8.5-inch hands. It's pretty small, I'm going to be honest with you. I kind of want to ask my girl to go measure her hands right now because 8.5 inches ain't that big. 4.4 for 840, like I said. Not the best. 6.86 on the 3-cone. Not good. He didn't test well. Excuse me. He didn't test well. His arms are only 29 inches, which wingspan isn't that big of a deal for wide receivers, I guess, if you know how to use if you know how to get open. 4.7 on the shuttle. 21 bench reps, though. 5'9", 21 bench reps. That's pretty darn good. That is pretty damn good. His wingspan is 70 inches. So, my biggest knock on him is his body. And I hate to be like that, but when it comes down to, and you saw it on the film, but when it comes down to playing more physical defenders, contested catch situations, it's hard for him. It's tough. At 5'9", realistically. So that's really all I can really complain about him. He did have an injury, I think, in 2022. I believe it was a leg injury. I think he broke his leg, maybe. I'm pretty sure it was a fracture. But either way, he's a very, very good player. I think that he is kind of dependent on scheme, and I think that we are the perfect scheme for him. He's going to be allowed space in which to work. He's going to be allowed one-on-ones. He's probably not going to see a bunch of press, and that, I think, is going to work for him. So I like the AINIAS Smith pick. Would I have taken him in the 5th? Maybe not. Maybe I would have taken him a little bit later, but I don't mind it at all. I know that Nick Sirianni likes him a lot, so I trust Nick Sirianni. That's what he's here for. Nick Sirianni is really here because we suck at drafting wide receivers. So this is your job, Nick Sirianni. I'm going to trust you on that, and I hope the best for him. I think that he's going to be really good. Like I said, he does run very good routes. He can definitely get better, though. He can definitely get better, and I think being able to work with a guy like Devontae Smith that is a lot like you. Again, Devontae Smith is a different echelon of player. I mean, he won the Heisman, for God's sake. So I'm not in any way saying that AINIAS Smith can be the next Devontae Smith, but Devontae Smith has a lot of the similar, attributes and flaws, I guess you can call them, or I mean, whatever you want to call it. I'm trying to think of a nice way of saying it. But I think that Devontae Smith would be a good mentor for AINIAS Smith. So you just kind of hand down the Smith. We're going from Smith to Smith. But yeah, so AINIAS Smith in the 5th round, that was a good pick by Howie Roseman and company. I like him. Kind of a gadget player, little army, Swiss Army knife. I'm cool with it. Get that yak going. I'm cool with it. Now, this is the pick that everybody wanted. Okay, now look, last year this happened too. So this year I made a video basically talking about 5 linebackers that weren't Jeremiah Trotter. Everybody was obsessed with Jeremiah Trotter. I wanted to show you the 5 guys that I personally thought were better than him. Jeremiah Trotter went after all 5 of those guys. So again, I'm not saying that I'm the smartest person in the world, but I'm a pretty darn smart person. So, but no, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. First of all, I hope he didn't hear anything I said. If you did, listen to this part. I have your father's autograph. I would love for you to autograph it as well. But 6 foot, 228 pounds, coming out of Clemson Jr. We know who his father is. Everybody knows who his father is. We're hoping he really is Junior, right? That's what we're hoping for. And if not, Josiah's coming out next year. So maybe we just triple down and get his other son. But his 40 was 4.6. Pretty good for the position. Not terrible, obviously. That's actually pretty good for the position at 228. And he's a smaller guy, so you kind of hope he runs a little bit faster. His hands 9 and 1/4, arm 31.5 inches, shuttle 4.4. Everything else kind of mid-tier. Bench, he benched 21 times. So kind of mid-tier. Like, he's not the strongest. He's decently fast. Obviously not the biggest. He kind of reminds me, and I'm hoping here, we'll put it like this. High end, you're looking at like an Ivan Pace Jr., Nick Bolton maybe. You know what I'm saying? That's who I'm hoping. They were both kind of undersized guys that played with a lot of fire, tenacity, and I know none of those are attributes, right? Like I can't quantify how much tenacity he played with, but that's who he is. Jeremiah Trotter, to me at least, is a player that plays off emotions, plays off drive, plays off just hunger, pure hunger. He might not be the strongest person. He might not be the fastest person on the field, but he's going to be around the ball, and that's a beautiful thing. Now, a lot of people bring up Nakobe Dean, which is fair. I mean, they both are undersized. I believe they're pretty close in size. So I like Jeremiah Trotter in the sense of he knows football probably better than any other prospect, maybe, other than like a Luke McCaffrey, a Brendan Rice. He knows the game of football. He knows the behind the scenes of football, how to be a professional, and, add to that, he knows how to be in Philadelphia. So I think there's a lot to like about Jeremiah Trotter, don't get me wrong, but I did feel like there were guys better than him. I do feel like this is a good spot for him. I think that 5th round was a really good spot for him at 155. I don't want to sit here and hate on him. I don't want to sit here and give you overly high expectations. This is going to have to play out. I'm going to be real with you. And maybe that's a cop-out. Maybe that's unfair to, if you guys think I don't know. Like, I watch Jeremiah Trotter. I have my opinions. I've talked about him a lot. So I don't want to sound like I'm hating. There's a lot of things I'm nervous about with him. I'm going to be real. But there are things that I'm excited about with Jeremiah Trotter. So this is going to be, let it play out, y'all. Let it play out. But I am happy. I mean, when you see the video of Jeffrey Lurie talking to Jeremiah Trotter, rest in peace to his mother. He brought up his mother, and it was emotional. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I teared up. I definitely teared up. I don't know if I was tearing up because it was so sad, or I was tearing up because I just saw one of my favorite players as a kid just get drafted, and I feel very old. But look, I'm happy that Jeremiah Trotter's here again. He's just going to have to play out. We're going to have to be patient, and we're going to see what happens. Now, the next guy was actually kind of a sleeper, even for me. I didn't have him on my board as far as for the Eagles, but Trevor KEEGAN is a crazy man. I'll put it that way. He looks like an absolute nut. I have not sat there and watched all his film and really broke him down, talked to people that I like. Because with offensive linemen, I usually like to talk to people that I know offensive linemen. But I like this guy. I think that he projects to a guard. I think he's going to be a guard at the next level. 6'5", 310. I mean, that's a big boy at guard. 10-inch hands, 5.240, which is not bad at all at 6'5", 310. I think I'd run like a 5-minute 40 at this point, and I ain't 6'5", 310. Shuttle was 4.63, which is low-key incredible. His vert was low-key incredible at 30.5 inches. So if he has to jump, we good. I don't know what he's going to be jumping for, but we going to be good. His 10-yard was 1.78, which is actually really good as well, and his broad jump was 107. So a lot of athleticism from him, and you'll see that from one of the guys we'll talk about next as well. But a lot of athleticism. He was at the Senior Bowl, and I will say going back to my notes from the Senior Bowl, he did perform well. He wasn't somebody that really stuck out to me, but there were so many guys there. I mean, there was so many offensive linemen, so many good defensive linemen. So I don't want to sit here and act like I know every single thing about him. The couple things that I do have as far as just negatives are that and this is what I was seeing at the Senior Bowl. That's why he didn't really stand out to me. He was a leader. I mean, he was even when he was out there, you could see that he was a leader out there. Obviously has the championship pedigree. Obviously has some NFL coaching behind him, so that's good. He's a powerful man, a very powerful man. So there's a lot to like about him. Let's not forget that. But there is one thing I will say. His technique needs a lot of work. And what do I mean by that? Sometimes a good amount of times you see him very high padded, very upright. Even in Michigan, you see a lot that they struggled in the past, and it had to do a lot with their offensive line, not just him, but I do feel like pass protection is something he's going to have to work on, which being at guard might be even better for him, help him out a lot. He does kind of struggle when he has to creep back or when he has to, figure out how to backdrop on faster defensive ends. But again, moving to guard, that might help him out. So I like the pick. I trust. This is one of those, and I said this in the live yesterday, though. Me and my girl were watching it. She was like, what do you know about this kid? And I was like, not too much. She was like, oh, is he that good then? And I was like, hey, if we pick him, I trust Stoutland. I trust Howie. They know offensive linemen way more than I ever will. So I trust them. If they like him, I love it. You know what I'm saying? You like it, I love it, dog. I'm all for it. Now, the next one is probably my favorite day 3 pick of all time. I'm lying because Jason Kelsey was picked day 3. My favorite day 3 pick of this year. That's way better. Johnny Wilson. I don't know how he dropped to 185. I'm going to be 100% honest with that. I can give you negatives. I can also tell you that he's 6'6", 231 pounds and ran a 4.5 40. I mean, I can give you that. I can give you that he gave 4'11" on the shuttle, 37-inch vert. You're already 6'7". You shouldn't be able to jump that high. 10-inch hands. I mean, come on, 231. He is a skinny dude. He is kind of a skinny dude, right? All right, but he plays a position like a power forward, and I love it. I think that he is going to be a beast, a absolute beast when it comes to red zone. I think that if he moves to tight end, he could be very interesting. He blocked well in college. I mean, I think something crazy like more than 70% of his touches in college became a touchdown. Like, that's crazy. That's insane. So he's a very, very good player, a guy that I'm very excited for. He's a contested catch guy. Now, he reminds me, when you say that, it reminds you of a guy like JJ Arcega-Whiteside. He's not that. All right, he is not that. There is some negatives like his route tree. He wasn't asked to really run a bunch of routes. Not much separation most of the time. Not the best route runner, not the crispest of route runners, but I do think that he's a good player. I think that this was a steal at 185. And again, I do think this is probably my favorite pick of the last day for the Eagles. It just made so much sense. Again, if you can move him to tight end, that will be very, very interesting. And if not, if you can just maybe refine him a little bit, just refine him as an outside wide receiver. You have him, A.J. Brown on the outside, and then on the inside, they got to deal with Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith. What? And Ananias Smith? It's over. It's over. So I love this pick a lot. I really do think that this was a very, very smart pick. Now, the last pick is Dylan McMahon. And I'm laughing because my girl said something very funny about this guy. I'm not going to say it because, you know, I'm not that mean of a person, but 6'3", 299 pounds, junior out of North Carolina State, from Savannah, Georgia, so not far from me. Ran a 5'1" at the 40, which is not bad at all. This guy's a center. He's a little small. We've had small guys before, and they've worked pretty well for us. But he is uber just upside. I mean, this guy has crazy, his frame is very good, right? But he's fluid, he's flexible, he can just move in space. He's a very impressive 300-pound 6'3" player. I mean, there's so many things that you like about him. His hand placement, there's so many things, but he's not a finished product by any means. I'm so used to seeing my camera up there, so if you see my eyes moving around, that's why. But there's, you know, he just needs to work on his feet. His hand placement is really good, but sometimes he relies on it a little bit too much. He relies on his hands a little bit too much. He doesn't, as the game goes, it looks like he's a little bit slower every time, and especially when he's asked to go to the second level a lot on run blocking and stuff like that. He's more of a finesse guy, so you want to see him get a little bit stronger. But I really like this guy. I mean, you know, again, he was at the Shrine Bowl, so a friend of mine, I don't know if I'm not going to say his name because he told me not to really tell people that he gave me it, but he gave me all the film of the Shrine Bowl, which was really cool. So I was able to watch his highlights and watch his one-on-ones. He was a very good player. Again, just handsy. You got to get away from using your hands all the time. Sometimes you just got to get in front of your guy, right? And that might sound weird, like, oh, if they have their hands on him, he's not going nowhere. But sometimes if you're over here, you just want to sometimes get him right in front of you. And I think that's what he does kind of struggles with, but I think that is something that's definitely fixable. And you know, hey, thankfully we got a guy named Stoutland that's pretty darn good when it comes to offensive linemen. So I'm cool with it. I hope y'all cool with it. I try to make this video not that long. I failed miserably, but it is what it is. Before I get out of here, I do want to give a quick shout out to my guy, Matt Weeks, man. He was on the live yesterday, and it was his birthday weekend. So shout out to him. He said really good birthday weekend for him. I agree. I wish it felt like my birthday. So I'm right there with you, brother. But listen, guys, I appreciate you so much for listening. I hope that you guys enjoyed this draft. And once I get all of the undrafted free agents, I was going to do it at the end of this video, but once I get all of them, then we'll do the full video about all these guys, and I'll give you all my information on who we do sign as undrafted free agents. John Ross got an invite, so that will be part of that video. Let me know what y'all thinking about everything, but other than that, y'all know what it is. Y'all know what it's going to be. It's Fly Eagles Fly. And we are out here. Peace!
This is for you.
Yeah. Fly Eagles Fly.